All right, we're going to kick our meeting off with a presentation from our Public Works on lead service line replacements.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Dan Vanderhyde, the Director of Public Works for the city. And one of the things that we're doing as an effort to reach out into the community is each quarter, senior staff are presenting a series of topics to the neighborhood association meetings. And we thought it would be helpful if we presented at least this particular one of the presentations to you all as well, so that you know what we're saying and you all can answer the same questions. And then also folks that are on the video with us tonight or sometime in the future can view it if they're not able to make it to a neighborhood association meeting. So the first thing to understand when we're talking about lead service line replacements, because they start with that first word, lead, Muskegon's water is safe. We have never exceeded the levels authorized by the EPA or the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. We test the water regularly, and again, have never exceeded those levels. There are occasional tests that do show a small amount of lead in the water, but it is always below the amount that is considered dangerous by the EPA. That being said, we recognize, just as everyone does, that no amount of lead in the water is a good thing. And so, at least in part because we know that, and also because we're being required to, we are working to systematically replace all of the lead service lines throughout the city. And we're doing that in a few different ways. The most noticeable are the large construction projects that we hire contractors for, and they will come into a neighborhood and replace all the lead service lines in that neighborhood over the course of a period of time. That is currently happening in the Oakview neighborhood, for example, or it was in the fall. It's paused for the weather now and will start up again in the spring. We also, as a department, replace lead service lines for various reasons. For new homes, for homes that experience problems with low flow or low pressure, as well as broken water lines and things like that. So what is a service line, or what is a lead service line? So I actually have a handy prop that I brought with me tonight. So this is a demonstration board that was put together by the water department quite some time ago. So I apologize for the dust, but all the components are still there, and so I'll walk through what each of them is. So I think you can see me on the camera too. So this is the water main. This lives out in the street. This particular example is a 6-inch diameter water main. That's how big the pipe is. And that's pretty typical for the sizes that run in most of the neighborhoods in Muskegon. This contraption right here is known as the corporation, and it does two things. It's a valve, and it also is the way that we connect the service line to the water main. We have a machine that drills a hole in the side of the water main, and then that screws right into that hole, and then it has a valve that we can open up once everything else is done. This shiny part here is copper on this example board, but that piece is the offending piece if this were a lead service line. Earlier in the century, earlier in last century at this point, before we knew lead was a bad idea, it was a convenient way to connect the water main, which is long and straight and doesn't bend, to the remainder of the water service, which is also made of materials that are long and straight and don't bend. It was a convenient way to connect the two because it's lead is easily bendable. And again, in this example, it's copper, but about that much lead would exist in many of the service lines across the city of Muskegon. The next thing is called the curb stop, and that is the valve that homeowners will be familiar with out in their yard or in their driveway. It has a box, we call it, but it's a tube, actually, that comes up to the surface of the ground and allows us to get access to that, turn the water service on or off as needed. The next piece here is made of galvanized steel, and that is common also in Muskegon. That is the part that goes into the house, and then once you get inside the house, if you can imagine the wall of the house right here, typically you'll find that first valve, and then you'll find the meter. And this is an old meter, but it does much the same thing as the ones that we put in today. It measures the water that goes into the home so that we know how much you use. And it's connected in various ways. This one is connected by a wire to this white box, which would hang on the side of the house and allow the city to read that meter without going inside. Some of our meters still have that. Others now contain a cellular antenna right within the meter, and we can read them on a computer screen at any time. So we're slowly switching over to the all cellular kind, but in the meantime, we have some that still look somewhat like that one there. So that's the lead service line, or that's the service line that we're talking about. The chemistry is such that the lead portion means that we have to replace the entire service line. So the city doesn't own the entire service line, but we are being required by the state to replace it all the way to the meter. So everything you see on the board there is what we will replace when we come to your home. So one of the things that comes up often is who pays for the lead service line replacements. And I think that's something particularly appropriate in this group. So as you know, we come to you pretty much annually and request permission to enter into the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund program. And we essentially take out a loan, a portion of which may or may not be forgiven, depends on the particulars of the program that year. We take a 20-year loan and we use that to go out and replace lead service lines. We've been fortunate most of the time in the past to get a high level of principal forgiveness or grant associated with those projects. It is going down over time. The most recent offer, I guess you'd say, that we were given from the state includes about 25% principal forgiveness or grant, which means that the system is paying for the other 75%. And the system gets its revenue from the water that we sell to our customers, which are, by and large, our citizens, together with our businesses and neighboring communities. So, over time, as those drinking water revolving fund projects continue, we hope, it's important that they continue to have a large portion of grant. And that's something that you all can help with as you talk to other politicians and other folks out and about in the state and in the nation. If those grants, if the grant portion of those loans goes away or continues to decline, although it will be spread out over time, 100% of the cost of these improvements that we need to do will fall on the citizens, and we will have to keep raising rates to keep up with that. So what should you expect when we come to your house to replace it? So we do have to get inside the home. As I said, that meter, which is usually in the basement or in the crawl space of a home, is one of the things that we need to get to and replace. And actually a good portion of the work takes place from within the house. The contractor will go in the basement, disconnect the water service, and they actually use a machine that goes out through the wall of the house and will find the water main. You do not have to dig up your entire yard as long as everything goes well. So that's a benefit. There will be some portions that will be dug up. And depending on the weather, it may take even until the following spring before we're able to restore those parts that are dug up. As I said, we do have to get into the basement of the home. So as the project approaches, a citizen would get a letter in the mail explaining the project, explaining that their house is coming up soon. With that letter, they'll see a form that authorizes us to enter into the home, us and our contractors. We hope and we ask that you would return that form that first time. If not, there will be other opportunities. As it gets closer to the time, you'll see one of these flyers or one like it hung on the door. I've given a copy to each of the commissioners. I've got some more in the back. And mostly what this is notice that it's happening, and then a link to the website. Back, you'll notice a QR code as well as a short form web address. And you can head there and see all of the things that I talked about, pictures about all of it, additional resources for lead in your water and lead in your home, additional ways that you can help reduce your risk, and a few other things. And if you can bring up this computer that I have connected here, I'll just demonstrate a couple things on the website. If you were to go to mkgcity.com/LSLR, which stands for Lead Service Line Replacement, this is the website you would be brought to. And on the left there, you can see lots of links with different things that you can do and ways that you can reduce your risk. There's quite a bit of narrative here that explains what we're doing and why we're doing it. We've got a video that you can watch, and that explains a lot of what we're doing as well. And then we have a frequently asked questions section where you can get your questions answered, assuming they've been asked before. And then at the bottom, some contacts. So if you have any additional questions, you're welcome to reach out to us by any of those methods. One of the things I did want to highlight for folks is that we have a map online, and I just clicked on it there, but I'll go and show it to you again. It is this link right here. It says Lead Service Line Material GIS Map. Click on that link. It'll bring you to this page. This is some introductory information about how to use the page and so forth. And then if you go over here down at the bottom, you click on the map and the data, and this will pop up. And this is a dot representing each lead service line that the city knows of. Well, each service line that we know of, all of them, including the ones that have been replaced already and the ones that we know to be lead. So you'll see a red, yellow, and green classification here. If it's green, that means either we've already replaced it or your service line never had any lead included. If your service line is red, that means we believe it does contain lead, and it's part of those projects and those efforts to replace them. And if your service line is yellow, that means that we believe at some point in the past your service line had lead. We are required by the state to replace it because of that. So it may not contain lead now, but in order to be extra sure, we're going to replace it anyway. If you click on it, it'll show the address that we have associated with it. It'll show some additional information. Some of this is helpful, some of it is not. So you can see the various data points, I guess, that we know there. Again, this is a red one, so we see the federal classification there is lead. And again, that's just a small piece of the water service is lead, but enough of it that it is considered to be a lead service line. And then you can see some other information, such as if we know the public side material, and that's on the street side of that curb stop box that I mentioned, the valve that you will see in your yard or your driveway. We consider everything towards the street of there, the public side, and everything towards the house of that, the private side. In this case, you can see they're both galvanized. The chemistry of metals is the reason that that yellow category exists. So as I said, and I think maybe some of you at least can still see the board there, the portion that was lead, which is just a small 12, maybe 18-inch long piece right up next to the water main. When the water sits, when it's stagnant, so when it sits for a period of time overnight, for example, a very small amount of the lead can leach into the water. If that moves downstream in the water service, chemistry is such that the galvanized steel can actually pull that lead back out of the water and into itself, thereby contaminating that galvanized steel piping as well. And so the GRR GPCL stands for galvanized requiring replacement and galvanized previously connected to lead. So even if that small portion of lead was removed from the service line, it's possible that some of the materials downstream of it contain lead as well, and that's why the entire thing has to be replaced. So it means the entire line. It means everything that you see below there on the board, the water main excluded. So the water main may or may not be replaced. It depends on the project. But when we talk about replacing the service line, we're talking about a new tap into the water main, a new service line all the way through to the basement or crawl space or whatever it may be of the home, and in almost all cases, even a new meter. We do not replace the piping inside the home.
Mhm.
Private plumbing inside the home, whatever the material may be, and it may very well be galvanized steel, and that is common in our town, but we will not replace those pipes. We are not both obligated to, and it would be uh, quite the project to replace, all the pipes and all the.
Mhm.
Any plumber should be able to give them an estimate on what it would take to do that, and it could be relatively simple for a small one-story home if everything is plumbed kind of in the ceiling of the basement, so to speak. It could be quite a bit more complicated if it's a multi-story. So yes, in October or so, we sent a letter to everybody in the city, and we told them what we thought their service line was made of. And we said if it was lead, that we would be replacing it at some point, probably prior to 2037. And if it was not lead, we said we're pretty sure it's not. But if you know different, let us know. They will get a different letter when their service line has been included in a project or identified by the city in some other way as about to be replaced. They will also get a copy of that letter each year. So as part of some improvements to the rules that the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy made recently, we are required to send that letter every year. We're in the unenviable position of having a lot of this work to do, more than most communities in Michigan, and as much as the communities of a similar size and age to us. So we don't have to be very picky. We can go pretty much wherever we want to and find them. However, there are some parts of the city where things are more dense, I guess you would say. There are more lead pipes than other locations. And if I zoom back out, you can see that. So the first thing we're looking at is how to get the most done we possibly can for the least money, system cost. You can see, for example, on the map, kind of in the Oakview, Sheldon Park neighborhoods there's a lot of red. So that's where a lot of our efforts are happening right now. I'll zoom in on the Marshfield neighborhood, and not to give everybody a headache. So you can see this is an area where there's a lot of homes of an age where they are lead or we think they're likely to be lead. So one of our first projects was in this neighborhood, and you can see we turned a large portion of that neighborhood green. So similarly, in the Oakview and Sheldon Park neighborhoods, which is where our contractors are working in general right now, you can see a lot of homes close together and a lot of lead service lines there. So that's where we're targeting. The efforts that the city does are a little bit more complex. They're based mostly on a number of other factors that aren't really related to whether or not the line is lead. So we'll get folks who call in and say that their service line is broken, or someone building a home on a now empty lot. They need a new service line. Somebody calls and says that their water pressure is really, really bad, or there's hardly any water coming out of the tap. And we investigate and find that their service line is very old and is a part of that problem, and therefore we will replace that one. So I guess in summary, if it's a project-based replacement, it's being targeted at the neighborhoods that have, I guess we'll call it the most lead service lines, or the most lead service line density is probably the best way to say it. And if it's being done by the city ourselves, it could be any number of factors. So if the funding that we have been able to take advantage of over the past 5 years or so continues, we expect that we would be done toward the middle of the next decade, 2035 or so. The rules that we are under obligate us to complete the project as of right now by 2037. That's a federal rule. If that were to go away, the state still has their own rule, which currently requires us to be done by 2040. So I can say that there's no doubt as of right now that we'll be done by 2040, and it's very likely that we will be done sooner than that, but it is not very likely that we will be done much sooner than that. I'll just reiterate one time that if anyone's watching and would like to go see this website, including the map, the address, there's a shortened address you can get to, which is mkgcity.com/LSLR.
Excellent. Thank you.